Welcome back, Buccaneers fans. This is Hear the Cannons, the one and only podcast strictly dedicated to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Sports Illustrated, presented by BucsGameday.com. We are extremely sorry for the technical difficulties that we were having in the first attempt of this episode. But thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us. I missed a week, so I'm off my game. I apologize for that. I was at a wedding last week. All of a sudden, that's all it takes is one week away, and you're missing out on all. Everything just leaves your mind, and you forget about it. And that's on me, guys. Really, truly, apologize for that. But as always,
absolutely, guys, make sure you blame him in the comments. And I definitely didn't mess up before he did the first time. That never happened. It definitely wasn't my fault the first time. So just put that out clear. It was all Caleb's fault. I did nothing wrong. Yeah,
it had me sweating. I've got sweat all over my face. It's ridiculous. I was stressing out here, guys. Really do apologize. But as always, my name is Caleb at CHS Dole, writer and reporter here for BucsGameday.com. With me, as always, is our lead editor, River Wells, at River H Wells on X. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us.
That's right.
If you guys are watching anywhere other than YouTube, we recommend you head over there. That's how you get your comments, your questions up there for us to be able to answer, for us to address as we go along with this episode. Shoot them in there as we go. If you guys want to even talk to each other in there as well, feel free to do so. We would also appreciate you if you go ahead and throw this a like. We try and get to 50 likes each and every episode, so that's greatly appreciated. And then if you're enjoying our stuff, hit subscribe, hit that notification button. That's how you'll get notified anytime we're going live, anytime any of our videos are posted, whether it be a reel, post-game practice, post-game game, any of that. So we truly appreciate you guys hopping in here with us. But let's jump right into the juicy stuff, River. I'm wearing a Boston Red Sox hat. You were wearing a Tampa Bay Rays hat. Just tell me how you really feel quickly about that, because I know your Rays are in second place.
I was, yeah, but my hat was too big because I cut off all my hair. Chat, make sure that you shame Caleb for wearing the Boston Red Sox hat, for sure. All I'm saying is that Rays are in second place. Opportunity to come in first here in a little bit, so we'll see what happens over the stretch. But they're red hot, baby. They're red hot.
Chasing down the Yankees in their own spring training stadium.
That's right. 4-0 to the Royals today. Listen, man, we're cooking.
Good stuff.
And even still, it's nice to hear your voice now that I can, because I put my settings correctly. So,
oh man, really appreciate that. Now that you can hear, it's great.
Now that I can actually hear you, yeah.
Let's jump into some football. Enough about the baseball talk. We've had some big news today. Early this morning, I was on my way to work. Contract extensions for Todd Bowles, head coach. 3-year extension came out as, and then also Jason Licht, which I did not see if they had mentioned how many years, whatever money or whatever it might be. But just early thoughts on what that is, and then we'll dig into the rest of what we got going on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, right? Light's been fantastic, and they gave him a pretty long leash to start. He's been general manager since 2014 when he picked Mike Evans, and there was a pretty rough stretch there that Light undertook with the Bucs. Weren't winning games, weren't making the playoffs. And other franchises probably would have fired a guy like that, but the Buccaneers didn't. And they kept hold of Light. And how did he reward him but with a Super Bowl championship in 2020 on the heels of Tom Brady and Bruce Arians? I'm sure we'll talk more about Todd Bowles, because Todd Bowles is the big one that is, somewhat contentious here among these extensions, but it's hard to say he didn't deserve an extension, right? He won the NFC South 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. He ended up winning a playoff game in 2023 against the Philadelphia Eagles. He's dug this team out of a hole every time they've gotten in one, whether or not that's his fault, but kind of, got an Ouroboros going on, which again, I'm sure we'll discuss a little bit later, but for all of his faults, and they do exist, I think he's earned a spot. And worst case scenario, guys, not a lot of coaches get fired or leave their jobs by their contract expiring. They usually get fired before that. So if Todd Bowles is to get fired before that, that would be the way to go, and you could get a new coach that way. Apparently, the Dallas Cowboys are content with letting their coaches run out their contract and then not accepting them. They seem to be the only team in the league that does that. So you're not really locked down. It just means that you're guaranteed to pay Bowles however much money or he's making, however many years. We don't know that exactly what the extension is for. But I like both of them. I wrote a piece on BucsGameday grading both of them, and I gave both of them positive grades. Light, obviously, more so than Bowles, but I like both of them. The players love Todd Bowles. He's got really good schemes still, had some trouble with injuries, but a lot of people have faith that he could end up coming back to that sort of defensive prowess that he's had previously with a new roster of players, and maybe they get healthier. So I like it. And there's not a lot of guys out there that you could look at that are necessarily better on the market. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, it was just shocking to me. I was not expecting that news to come out. Jason Licht makes a whole lot of sense, especially with what he's been able to do in the draft, free agency, putting together rosters the best that he can, and all that. And the biggest question is Todd Bowles, right? Like, and everybody midway through last year is calling for his job with the whole Chris Godwin, injury and everything going on there. And then, he turns it around, finishes the year strong, doesn't have as many lapses when it came to coaching. And so it's questionable. People were like, really, Todd Bowles, this, that, the other, when you're looking at social media. But he has done a fairly good job. He could have let everything go into the dumps after, Tom Brady left, and he didn't allow that to happen. And the culture maintained itself throughout that. Being a player's coach, the guys love him. They love to play for him. And hopefully that defense does get turned around. And again, as River mentioned, there's not much out there right now that you're really going to point to and be like, we really can, wait this thing out and see what is going to be out there in a year or two or whatever it may be. So overall, it is what it is. And then, if things do go sideways eventually, you can let them go. So I think overall pretty solid. I was not a huge fan of extending Todd Bowles, if I'm being strictly honest with you, but we'll leave it at that. I mean, again, he knows this team. He knows this front office. He knows what they expect from him, and he's going to put the best product on the field that he has available. Now, when it comes to coaching, whole other story. He hired somebody, this offseason to kind of help him be able to go with the game plans, situations that he's run into.
Yeah, director of football research, they call him. They got him from the Jaguars. And really, that goes to show that Todd Bowles knows that he has problems in that area. He's identifying them, and he's working to fix them. And that's all you could ask for, really. Now, whether or not that ends up working out for him remains to be seen in 2025 and beyond. And I agree that you can't dig yourself into yet another hole, a 4-6, a 4-7 sort of situation again. But he's identifying these problems. He's got a clock management guy in. He's had Jason Licht draft a lot more defensive players. He has this eureka moment that they talked about with revamping his defense. You might see a little bit more press coverage. You might see a little bit more of an aggressive defense. He's working to fix all these issues that he has, and that's the best you can ask for at the moment. So that's another reason why they might have some good faith in Todd Bowles. That, yes, he's flawed, but he's working to fix these things. And if he does, then we could really have something special on our hands. So.
Yeah. And, moving forward, I think this is the 1 year that you can point to and be like, okay, he's got pretty much everything that he needs at his disposal to be able to have a team that can go, further than he has the past 2-3 years. So to be seen, we like it. We don't necessarily love it per se. Obviously, Jason Licht, we do love, but with the Todd Bowles thing, like it, don't love it. But a little bit more fun here. River, you've got your Creamsicle jersey, Levante David jersey hanging back there.
I do. It's this way.
I've got my Creamsicle Bucko Bruce flag hanging back here as well.
At least you're repping Tampa Bay somewhere, man.
Got to. I know. I mean, a little bit of Tampa Bay. I got the lightning back here.
You do.
It's cool. It's cool.
It's true. That's all ball. Yeah. That's all puck.
But yeah, Creamsicle jerseys. A lot of speculation that it would be away this year for the Seattle Seahawks.
I'm so upset. I'm so upset, man. I'm just gonna cut you off right there. I'm upset. I love those white Creamsicle jerseys. The Seahawks have been the perfect place to do it. 50th anniversary. Both teams came in the league at the same time, and look what we're doing. It's the Falcons again for the second time in a row in the second game at home once again. Come on, guys. Come on. Now, I love the Creamsicle jerseys. And listen, if you're out there and you're like, well, they lose all the time in them, so we shouldn't wear them, you're wrong. They look fantastic. Okay? The jerseys don't cause wins and losses. It's a coinky dink. You got to keep wearing them. And I'm glad that they keep wearing them. I'm glad they transform the field. It's such a cool vibe when you go there and you're in the Creamsicles and you get the 70s sort of 60s and 70s feel, 70s, 70s, 80s feel, and it's a really cool time, and I'm glad that they're going to keep doing it. I wish it would have been a different opponent, and I wish we had those white throwbacks, man. I really do. But it'll be Atlanta the second time around on Thursday Night Football. So it'll be the first time they wear them in a night game. So you do get the double whammy of the Bucs being on prime time and wearing these uniforms. So I'm sure for the wins and losses people, that might be a big game. That might be the Bucs got to prove they can do it both ways. So love the Creamsicle unis. I have one right here. Fantastic. Should have been the white ones. Should have been the white ones. Should have been.
Just reiterate everything River just said. Just quote it down, and that's the exact same thing that I would have to say. I've got a Mike Evans Creamsicle jersey hanging in the closet right next to me. I love them. I know the record's not great in them, but hey, again, night game.
I ain't superstitious. I'm not.
So week 15, expect the Buccaneers to be in their Creamsicle jerseys against the Atlanta Falcons once again.
Under the lights this time.
Whether or not Atlanta decides to do something crazy remains to be seen, but I highly doubt they will. They'll probably go just, white.
I don't think they have an away throwback. Teams should have away throwbacks. They're all home throwbacks. And then what are we doing? Then we've got 2 home teams playing, and that's ridiculous. So someone's got to change. Someone's got to change. And it's got to be the away team, right? It's got to be the away team.
Hello. We've got it. We've got one.
Exactly. And the Bucs wear white as their home uniform, basically.
Right.
So, I mean, come on. What are we doing? Marketing. Nike, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Fanatics. I don't care who I need to call. Make it happen. Make it happen. But it'll be interesting because week 1, the Bucs play the Falcons, right? And the week 1 games are always a little shaky. So the Bucs could end up dropping that game for various reasons, just because you're coming off flat-footed. It's hard to get used to the scheme, and that's fine, right? It just sucks when it's a divisional opponent. So Bucs fans will remember last year the Washington Commanders came to town. The Bucs beat the brakes off them in week 1, and then they ended up knocking them out of the playoffs in week 18. 19, I guess, because there's 18 weeks. But the first round of the playoffs in the wild card round. So really, that game could be huge because if the Bucs happen to drop one against Atlanta in week 1, I think that's fine. And it doesn't necessarily prove who's better or what, because week 1's always really shaky and you're treading new ground in the season, but you're going to have to win that game. And then on the flip side, the Bucs do end up winning that game. That could be a chance to put Atlanta away. So it's going to be a pretty big one.
Yeah. And we'll continue here with the football talk. We'll hop off of the whole Creamsicle fun jersey stuff and get into a little bit deeper dive
white uni. Yeah.
With training camp. Okay, we've got training camp, little less than a month away. That's going to be starting for the Buccaneers. You've written some pieces. You've done a little bit of deep dive here on what's going to happen. Let's start off here, River. There's going to be some battles in training camp. Whether it's safety, whether it's nickel corner, wide receiver. Where are you going to see these big position battles happening for the Buccaneers? It could be depth or it could be at the starting position. Where do you see this happening?
Wide receiver is an obvious one. You've got Trey Palmer on the edge, on the cusp, and Ted Johnson is probably going to be a punt returner. He's been doing really good there. But we saw Todd Bowles say that he might be working his way into a role in the offense, and quite frankly, where's the room for him to do that, right? You've got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka is in there now. You got Sterling Shepard. You got Jalen McMillan. So a lot of players he would have to overcome in order to get any reps on offense. So that's going to be tough. And you're going to have these bubble guys like Palmer. And, I mean, Ryan Miller caught a touchdown in the dying embers of the Chiefs game last year to keep it close. And now he might be off the team entirely, which just goes to show how good this wide receiving depth is. So that's definitely going to be a point of contention, I think, for sure. There's going to technically be a nickel corner competition, but, man, I think Jacob Parrish has them locked up. They're going to throw in guys like Christian Izien. They're going to throw in guys, maybe J.J. Roberts, might get some looks at it. But I have a feeling Jacob Parrish is going to take that position. Tacky Smith's going to move from nickel to safety. So that's probably going to be locked up a little bit. So there's definitely going to be a few looks there. And then corner, I mean, outside corner, you've got Jamel Dean and Benjamin Morrison. Simon McCollum's probably secure in his outside corner spot. But then Jamel Dean and Benjamin Morrison are probably going to be trading reps because Dean should be the starter, and Dean's a good cornerback when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy. So they drafted Benjamin Morrison as kind of insurance for that, And if he ends up really impressing in camp, then who knows what could happen there, right? So that'll be pretty interesting to see how that sort of goes. Well, I think most of the competitions are on defense because on offense, the entire starting offense is returning, plus guys like Emeka Egbuka and Tez Johnson. So there's going to be a few competitions there on defense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, I think the main ones are going to be at wide receiver and at cornerback, specifically on the outside corners. Jacob Parrish, it should have that, slot locked up as long as he stays healthy throughout the remaining of training camp and the rest of the offseason into preseason. And you had talked about some of the guys on the bubble, Trey Palmer's, Ryan Miller's, Tez Johnson's, even Sterling Shepard, if you want to throw him into that mix as well.
Yeah.
But you're also going to have a position battle there at the the wide receiver 3 spot. Emeka Egbuka obviously drafted in the first round.
Big time. Big time, so, yeah. It's going to be interesting. I think it's Egbuka, right?
Right.
I don't know what your thoughts are, but McMillan played really well. He had 8 touchdowns last year, really came into his own in the second half of the year, but Egbuka's a more polished wide receiver coming out of college. They spent a lot of capital on him, a few rounds higher than McMillan was picked. So I just can imagine that Egbuka's probably going to get that spot, but we'll see how that competition goes. We don't know if Chris Godwin's going to be ready for week 1. The assumption is that he will be. The team's confident that he will be, but you never know. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to figure out which one of those guys is going to be on the field, and I think it's going to be Egbuka.
So you're going to see, obviously, Chris not going to be ready here in training camp.
He'll still be rehabbing.
They've told us this over and over again. He's not going to be ready for training camp. Hopefully he's ready for week 1. So you're going to see both McMillan and Egbuka probably getting, those reps there. Those 3 wide receiver sets in training camp. So not strictly talking about training camp, but, that position battle for that number 3 spot. So it's going to be who's really going to improve themselves during training camp when Chris is absent, that they are deserving of that number 3 spot. Now, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because it's kind of interchangeable. You can go 4 wide if you really want to. Little NASCAR term there. It could really go either way because I do think it's kind of McMillan's to lose based off of how he finished the season last year. He showed that he can be that number 3 guy or even number 2 guy really out when he was playing opposite of Mike Evans last year. Yeah. So he stepped into a big time role last year in the absence of Chris Godwin, helped finish the year strong, helped them win all those games to be able to win the NFC South and make it to the playoffs. So ultimately, I think it's his job coming into the season to lose because as polished as Emeka is, he is still a rookie wide receiver, right?
He is. That's
still
true.
Adjusting to this offense. New offensive coordinator, despite everybody getting a new offensive coordinator, it's still a new offense, even though because Grizzard is still kind of taking pieces of what Liam was working with. McMillan's going to know it a little bit better. He's going to be able to understand a little bit more of the nuances. He understands where Baker wants him to be. He understands where Baker's going to put the ball as well. So I think he's going to have a leg up in that, race, if you will, come training camp. But this is going to be the time for Emeka to prove that he can quickly latch on to what Baker wants, what Grizzard wants in the offense. And if he can do that fairly quickly, then he has a great chance, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how they play this because we didn't expect to get a wide receiver in the first round of the draft, right? They went best player available. They're planning for the future. And I think, McMillan and Egbuka both offer a lot of different things. And they offer similar associates in some ways, but they both play a little bit different ball. I think Egbuka is a much more of a slot kind of guy, and McMillan can do that. But, he played outside a lot last year because that was where he had to play because Chris Godwin was there. So it will be interesting to see where they end up going because McMillan's kind of facing that same sort of thing. Godwin was there in the slot, now he's outside, and now you've got Egbuka here. Where does he go? So it's going to be a fun competition. I think Egbuka will probably lean to be the favorite there, but you never know. You could be right. We could have an incumbent who knows the offense kind of getting a better handle on it. But either way, it's kind of a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you have development with Egbuka, but at the same time, if you've got too many great wide receivers, then no, what a problem. To figure out how to get them all on the field.
you hate to say it, right? Like you hate to say it's a good problem to have, but it is a good
Yeah,
problem to have.
it is objectively, right?
But going on the opposite side of this, River, you had mentioned Trey Palmer, mentioned Jamel Dean, a couple other guys as well. There's going to be some guys fighting for a roster spot. Maybe Jamel not as much fighting for a roster spot as much as potentially being a cut candidate. But who are some of the guys that are going to be, kind of tiptoeing this line on whether or not they're going to make the team?
Yeah, I wrote an article about this, and it's pretty interesting because I mentioned some guys. I mentioned Kendall Vildor, who is a corner that the Bucs actually signed in free agency this offseason, which would make you think, oh, he's not going to get cut, right? Well, when you look at the cornerback room, they went and they drafted Benjamin Morrison, they drafted Jacob Parrish. So now there's 4 guys there, one playing the corner, but there's 4. And then you've already got returning players like Tyreek Funderburk and Josh Hayes. And then you've got Vildor. Now, if Vildor can play special teams, that's a huge bonus. But guys like Josh Hayes already play special teams. So now what are you doing, right? So at that point, I forgot to mention, too, Bryce Hall. Bryce Hall is there. So you're competing with Bryce Hall there automatically. And then you've got other players on the team who maybe haven't shown out well when they're playing cornerback, but they can play teams. So Vildor's got to find a way to figure out what he's doing. What's his purpose? Who is he above? Who is he behind? But that'll be interesting. I mentioned Deion Jones, really thin linebacker core, obviously. But Jones is a little bit older. He's going to be the 4th guy there probably because you've got Levante David and Servassier Dennis starting. Then you got Anthony Walker Jr., who they just added in free agency. And then Jones is kind of the 4th guy. They've also got Antonio Greer there, who's younger. So interesting to see where they go with that. It is a really, really, really thin room, so they could end up keeping him on. But it should be noted, Deion Jones did not play a lot of special team snaps last year at all. So if you're not doing that and you're not playing, see what happens there. So those are 2 that I mentioned in my article, but I feel like those are 2 names to look out for. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to those, honestly, when it comes to those corners, I mentioned Vildor specifically in the article, but Hayes, Funderburk, all those guys are kind of grouped up in one area of like fighting to make the team because you got to play teams.
As long as Vildor doesn't do what game was that where he just like launched himself trying to make a tackle and it was just.
You'll have to be more specific.
I can't remember
because he does that a lot.
It was like all over Twitter and oh man, it was brutal. But
he was also the recipient of the helmet deflection that Brandon Ayuk ended up catching. That ended up sending the 49ers to the Super Bowl. So that's pretty unfortunate. But the PFF article recently released said that Vildor was the most aggressive cornerback in the league in terms of contact, which they mentioned was not a good thing because he does draw a lot of holding penalties and grabs. So I think in a pinch, he's not a bad option at all to have playing. You don't want him to start, but he's a good depth player who can fill in when needed, but so is Bryce Hall, right?
As long as he's healthy coming off of that injury.
Exactly. But then so is, Hayes and Funderburk didn't show very good play when they were in, but now they're not going to have to play as much, and they know the system. People are still learning. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that sort of thing, right? And I think that's going to be something to look out for.
Yeah, and we touched already on the wide receivers, and it pretty much the same thing as the cornerback room, and Trey Palmer, Ryan Miller, left, right. You can keep going, Rakim, whoever. Like, there's so many different guys that could potentially end up, just on the wrong side of the boat, just because the depth at that position is just so deep. So, speaking of corners, we're gonna jump into a hypothetical here real quick, River. And,
oh man, do I like those?
It's going to be interesting because the Bucs do have the cap room to be able to bring this guy in, but it would just add to the cornerback room, and that guy is former Florida State Seminole and current Miami Dolphin Jalen Ramsey. Getting older, expensive, but could fit into what the Bucs are able to do. Could you see it happening? I know there's that veteran presence that he might be able to bring, that he could also fit into Todd Bowles' defense pretty well, considering how Todd Bowles likes to have his corners play physical at points. How do you see that potentially unfolding, especially considering that Benjamin Morrison is kind of an unknown at this point with that condition that he has with his hip? We saw him, participating early in mandatory minicamp and then kind of disappearing off to the side and not really having any work done. So your thoughts there before we move into something that I think you're going to be very excited about.
Oh man, a tease. Probably not. I feel like Bulls and Light tend to really make their roster moves early and then they're done unless they need to be. Ramsey would be able to get signed under the Bucs' current cap scenario, but like you mentioned, he's aging. I don't know how Todd Bowles wants to revamp his defense this year, but Ramsey's a fantastic corner in zone and man. But obviously, he's very good one-on-one in a press situation. The Bucs don't run a lot of that, or at least they haven't in the past few years. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that would be the right move for them. I don't really see it happening. Anything's possible. And the Bucs need more corners because they need better defense. And Ramsey's an excellent player, one of the best cornerbacks in the game, has always been phenomenal. But getting a little up there, and I would not foresee that happening. But you never know. You never know.
It's a stretch, right? Like it is. Everybody's floating it. You see Fox Sports being like, "Oh, best fit this." Yeah, would be a good fit. Like we understand it, but the realism of that potentially happening just seems very far-fetched in my opinion.
It's just Jason Light has told us before, he's like, it's nice to go out and get a player, but then you got to pay for it later in the structure, and he's very conservative when it comes to signing his guys and in free agency and knowing where his cap is and not stretching it too far. He's not a big gambler in that instance, and that would be somewhat of a gamble. So I would say.
Yeah, and Jalen Ramsey is the complete opposite. He likes to bring his truck to be backed up, to him.
Of course, and most of the time he deserves it. So,
but he hasn't necessarily played like that type of player as of late. So the draft capital may be not as much if you were to go into a trade. Again,
not at all. Not at all.
Don't foresee it being a thing at all, if you will. But let's keep it moving. We'll hop off the Jalen Ramsey train. If you guys are watching anywhere other than YouTube, suggested that you guys head over to YouTube, shoot us a like. If you're liking what we got going on, hit the subscribe button as well. We try to get to 50 likes every single episode, so we truly, truly, truly do appreciate that, guys. If you have any comments or questions, we're here to answer them. So drop them in that comment box. Anything that's pertaining to what we're talking about, or if anything you just have a question about, you're thinking of something that's clicking in your mind and it's coming off of what we're talking about, we'll be willing to discuss it as well. So feel free to do that, guys. Again, like, comment, subscribe, really helps us out, really helps us keep continuing to bring this content to you guys. So thank you very much. But River, you did a piece not too long ago, might not have gotten as much love as we probably had wanted it to or had thought it would. And that is a piece surrounding Baker Mayfield. If you guys haven't gone over to BucsGameday.com and checked it out, be sure to do so. And this is an analysis, a full analysis from River himself. Did a little deep dive into Baker Mayfield's turnovers. So I'm going to hand the keys over to you, buddy. Go ahead, take it from here, and give us a breakdown on what you discussed over there at BucsGameday.com.
Well, thank you. Really, I just want to take a look at, because we know Baker Mayfield turns the ball over a lot. He throws picks and he fumbles. He led the league in picks last year. He led the league in fumbles last year. He's led the league in picks the last 2 years of being a Buccaneer, but he's produced at an incredible rate. So I kind of sought to find out, well, is it worth it? Is this production that he has worth those turnovers that he brings? And he does. And I looked at his turnovers and I looked at his production, and I thought right now, as it stands, his production is absolutely worth it. He's producing at a crazy rate, over 40 touchdowns last year, and he runs in some as well. He puts up yards. He's very accurate when he throws, and he doesn't make a lot of bad throws that could result in turnovers. So really, he's got to get him down for next year and the year after that, and he could turn into a special quarterback. He's got the means to be a top quarterback in the NFL, and those turnovers are the one thing holding him back. I will ask you about one thing, because I mentioned this in my article as well. Mayfield threw 16 interceptions, and I looked at all of those interceptions last year. Interestingly enough, 10 of them came when the Bucs were either tied or down of those 16. And I mentioned as well, sometimes you're in a big hole and you just kind of got to throw your way out of it. And if it happens, it happens.
Right.
Kind of happened. One of them against the Falcons, it was 31-17. He threw one because he was trying to get the ball out. But do you think that there could be a possibility that Mayfield sometimes kind of plays more radically when he's chasing down a lead or trying to earn it, as opposed to being smoother when he's comfortable in the lead in the driver's seat?
It kind of comes down to, like, if you think of it in basketball terms, it's hero ball. Teams down big, guys just start chucking up threes left and right, and you can kind of see that in the way Mayfield plays. His feet get a little happy. He kind of
for sure.
He tries to do things that he normally wouldn't if he's got a lead, or whether, even if it's tied, really, like, unless it's later in the game. And it brings into question, does he have that clutch gene? Which a lot of people have kind of back in college. Baker had the clutch gene, and you have yet to see that up to this point, other than, on occasion it would be there, and we saw it in glimpses from time to time last season. But I think he might press a little bit. I think he might put a lot of weight on his shoulders. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think that he might think that he has to do it all himself instead of trying to rely on his playmakers, which he does throughout the rest of the game.
Right.
Which can come back to haunt you. If you try to Tom Brady it, or you try and do something that's abnormal and hope that it works out, and it doesn't necessarily work out for him. And, a little bit of luck goes into that. That's just part of the game. But yeah, I think he puts a lot on his shoulders. He always does that. He's always carried himself that way. And I don't blame him for doing so. And I think what I was going to mention totally, like, that kind of goes along with that, is like, it's at inopportune times. It's when the team's trying to drive down the field, or the team's about to cross to the other side of the field at a good point in the game to be able to get points, and he gets strip sacked, fumbled, or just loses the ball.
Right. We saw a few instances, like again the Ravens game when the Bucs were up 3. He threw a pick to Marlon Humphrey in their own end zone, which killed. We saw that Washington Commanders fumble, whether or not you attribute that to Baker Mayfield or Jalen McMillan. That fumble happened on a botched jet sweep, and that was a huge turning point in the game. So sometimes it comes in inopportune times. But if you look, I actually, in this article, I looked at success rate, which it kind of measures a successful pass. So for first down, 40% of the yards needed is successful under the stat. 60% of the yardage on second down, and then 100% on either third or fourth down. That's what success rate is, essentially, like how much yards you get in conjunction to that percentage. And Baker Mayfield, 53.9% of the time was his success rate, which is second only to Jared Goff last year. So that means that he was extremely efficient when he did throw, and he was very accurate when he did throw as well. So those are all things to keep in mind when you evaluate his play. But I thought it was safe to say that, yes, I think he's a very successful quarterback. He can help this team win games. He's more positive than he is detrimental. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, when people call Baker Mayfield a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, I think those types of turnovers are what's preventing him from being in that conversation. So I think it's more good than bad. But I think if you want to talk about him as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, you have to keep those things in mind.
Yeah, and I look at plays that he makes, and we're like in awe, right? Like, I mean, the whole Bosa stiff arm, and he's running towards
that Jalen McMillan throw last year,
and then it's like
just unbelievable.
And it's like that could have easily been like Bosa could have easily swung his other arm and knocked out the ball because Baker's running with it or in one hand, and it's like, I mean, what would you? It's a trade off, when you have Baker Mayfield as your quarterback, he's going to do everything in his power to will his team to a victory.
He's a gunslinger. He's a true modern gunslinger.
And sometimes it doesn't work out. And sometimes it doesn't work out for him. That's fine.
And sometimes when you're a gunslinger, you could either be a good one or a bad one. Jameis Winston is a bad gunslinger. When he throws the football, he'll throw it however he sees fit, and most of the time it ends poorly. But Baker Mayfield, most of the time, it ends positively.
Right.
And that has won the Buccaneers some games. And he has scored points, and he has produced. He's done everything they've asked him to do. I'm bought in on Baker Mayfield. I think it's totally worth it. He might even still be underpaid, right? But there is that but. when you talk about him. When you talk about the turnovers, he needs to put it down. Now, to put this into context, the last 2 seasons, 26 interceptions is the most in the league. In second with 25 is Patrick Mahomes. And that's a pretty good quarterback, right? And then his fumbles, he's fumbled very frequently as well. He's tied for the league lead with that the last 2 years with Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP. So these guys do that sort of thing, but their production makes it worth it. And Baker Mayfield, I came to the conclusion, is one of those people.
Yeah, and I think he's close to being like elite. He's right there.
Yeah.
And D13's in here on YouTube talking about that.
It was incredible. It was absolutely. It didn't make sense when you watched it from the press box.
No,
he can do those things.
I think we looked at each other and were like, "Did you just?"
He can do those things, and then sometimes he throws a pick. But I think the upside of those types of plays right now makes him worth the price of admission.
Absolutely.
Now, if he ends up turning the ball over at a similar rate again next year, you can start to have a conversation of, is this just going to be what happens when you have Baker Mayfield as your quarterback?
Right.
And that'll be a valid conversation. But he still has time to learn this offense. Remember, guys, every year he has switched offensive coordinators until like this year.
Yeah.
So now he has still switched offensive coordinators, I should say, but the terminology is very similar. Josh Lazard. He's got a lot of continuity between these two schemes, and he could thrive in that. Thrive in that.
And Binkus is agreeing with me with the whole Baker getting the choppy feet, getting a little nervous.
The happy feet is when you can start to see that something is going to go wrong, and you can identify that. Yeah, and to be fair to the other argument that he's not a top QBs don't really do that.
No, but and it gets talked about like when we're in the press box, guys, and you guys probably, if you're in the stands or watching from home, if you haven't noticed,
you can see it too.
Yeah. You can see it, and it's something that gets talked about. We're talking about it in the press box. We're like, oh, it something bad might be on the horizon, and
you can just kind of tell.
Yeah. So. And then another thing here from D13. I truly believe that if Baker could stay under 8 interceptions, the Bucs can win a Super Bowl this year. He is productive enough for scoring, and the defense will hold. Thoughts on that? Because I do think he makes a good point, because the ball was turned over a lot on our own side of the field.
For sure. And you don't have to throw 41 touchdowns. I mean, that's awesome. But if you throw in the 30s and you get under 10 picks, you're really cooking and you're efficient. Right? Under 8 would be fantastic. I think 8's totally fine, especially that's half as many as he threw last year. So that would be fantastic. If he can get in the 30s and he can get single-digit interceptions, which is not easy, then you can make it happen. And you just don't fumble. You take care of the football. You run smart.
Yeah, I was going to say the running game has to work.
It does. And people talk about this too. I mentioned, Baker Mayfield fumbled 13 times, but he only lost 2 of them. Well, if you fumble it and you fall on it immediately, you get the ball back, but that play is just burned. So those are negative plays, and you got to avoid negative plays. So that's just the biggest area he's got to work on.
Yep, it's everybody should know it at this point for Baker, and that's how much. Do you know this? Quick question here before we move on. Corey's hopping in here late. Do you know this by chance off the top of your head, River? How many of Baker's picks from last year turned into points by the opponent?
I do not know off the top of my head, but that is a very good point of research, which I will probably do, and I might tweet that out once I get the information, because that is a good point. It just depends usually on where you throw the ball and when you turn it over. Is it on your side of the field or is it on your opponent's side of the field? So I would imagine off the top of my head, a lot of his interceptions usually came when the Bucs were driving, they were in scoring position, and then they had some interception problems. So I will look that up. That is a good question.
Yeah, Corey, if you have Twitter or X, excuse me, and you don't follow River is going to look this up for you. He's saying he's going to put it out there. So be sure to hold him to it, all right? Be sure to hold him to that. But River, just some fun little things to end this show off. We've put out a couple pieces that are just hypothetical, some good opinion, thought pieces that we are doing through this little, I guess you would call it, dead period in between mandatory minicamp and training camp. River, quick question. What Tampa Bay legend would you want to re-sign to this current Tampa Bay Buccaneers team?
That's a good question. Caleb wrote an article on this, and I'm going to let you say what you picked if you so choose to.
Yeah.
I
will.
Ooh, I think Mr. Derek Brooks, who's our favorite player, would be a great pick. The linebacking core is pretty thin right now. Derek Brooks is a generational coverage linebacker. I would say probably the best coverage linebacker to ever play football. And I think the Bucs could always use someone like that. So if I had to take a player in their prime and put them on this Bucs team, I would go Derek Brooks. Rondé Barber, more of a nickel guy as well, but very versatile. He kind of revolutionized the nickelback position as we know it in today's modern NFL. But that wouldn't be a bad pick either.
Yeah, it was hard because I came down to it. Obviously, I was going to go on the defensive side of the ball because we don't need anybody on offense right now.
Right.
And so it was like, John Lynch potentially, but I think we can get away with what we have. And he kind of plays a similar game to Antoine, so you don't really necessarily need two of those guys back there. Rondé, I think the cornerback room is kind of thick right now, and again, going back to him playing slot nickel corner, they brought in a rookie to kind of do that. Plus, they have Tyke Smith who could do that as well, and Christian Izien. So don't necessarily need Rondé right now, even though it'd be awesome to have Rondé. Not saying it wouldn't be. And then it came down to, do I want an edge rusher, which we have Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby, and we're kind of set out there with some of the guys in the depth pieces as well. And then I settled on interior defensive line or linebacker. And the easy answer was Derek Brooks. And I decided to go against it. And so I took Warren Sapp. I just think pairing him and Vita Vea next to each other on the interior defensive line, and you have Yaya on one side and Hassan Reddick on the other. It's going to be really hard to block that defensive line.
Oh, I agree. I mean, one of the most dominant players in NFL history. So
yeah.
Not a bad pick at all.
I mean, a mean son of a you-know-what. Gets after it. And, then you move Kalijah back into a rotation with Greg Gaines and all those other guys back there, which is great because Canty hasn't really been on the field or quite produced, especially in the run game, as much as we have wanted him to.
Yep.
And then you have a solid rotation coming in whenever Sapp or Vita get, a little gas or whatever it may be. And that's just scary to me. Like if I'm an opposing offensive line and a quarterback, I'm just like I don't want to.
Yeah. Absolutely. It'd be a nightmare.
I don't want to do this.
Not a bad pick at all.
I know, and I also, thought about how he would fit into the locker room. It is another thing I touched on, and I knew people would be like, "Really, you want to put a guy like Warren Sapp into a locker room that has been constantly discussed as being high character and talking about the types of guys they have in the locker room?" But you got to remember who Warren Sapp also played with. He played with Derek Brooks, perhaps the nicest guy in the world. He played with Rondé Barber, also one of the nicest guys in the world, and John Lynch, who is just an all-around type of guy as well. So he played in a room that had tons and tons of high character, and he was just kind of the guy that did the dirty work, did the mean job, talked all the smack, and so he would have no problem fitting in. I would have loved for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to re-sign Warren Sapp. That would be awesome. Really love that. But the next one for you, River, I didn't write this one, so I kind of got to think about it a little bit. But if you were to pick any current Tampa Bay Buccaneers player, so anybody currently on the roster, that could eventually or would eventually become a head coach, who would it be and why?
Lavonte David. We're sticking with the linebackers here. Lavonte has some of the best instincts and football IQ of any player I think I've seen play football. So I'm going to go with the jersey right here. I think he'd be a great coach if he so chose to do that. I don't know if that's something he's interested in doing. He hasn't specifically said it either way, I don't think. Anthony Walker Jr. is mentioned. Anthony Walker Jr. wants to become a coach once he retires, so that's cool. But Lavonte is just so smart. He knows the game so well. He's played it for so long in different eras, so he has a lot of experience in different ways of play. I think he'd be a great choice.
I'm going not necessarily. I guess you could say based off play, but it's probably more off looks and character and football IQ. And I'm gonna go with Cade Otton. I think Cade Otton would be a great head coach. He plays the game really smart. He takes care of his body. He knows how to play his position while also stepping up when it matters most. And I mean, you look at the guy and his character, he's probably one of the nicest people you'll ever be around. And if you ever want your kid to play for somebody, you probably want him to play for a guy like Cade Otton. Not really going to get on to you, but he'll probably hire some coaches to be able to do that for him. But you know, big 6 foot whatever guy with a mustache and you know some sweet facial hair to go along with it.
We all know that's what makes an NFL coach.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. You know, just throwing it back to like the Dick of days. Just giving it to Cade Otton. If I were to go somewhere else, I think Chris Godwin would probably be a really, really good NFL head coach, or at any level, really. I mean, Chris Godwin, talk about IQ, talk about a guy who plays the game the right way, would be fantastic. But again, I'm going with two of the guys that are probably more on the quiet side of the things. But I mean, I don't think Levante is necessarily one of those mean coaches, raw guys either.
Yeah.
So I like it. I think all three of our guys would do good. But any parting thoughts here, River, before we go ahead and log off for the night?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of fun hypotheticals to talk about when we're in the absolute dead off season. But I'm excited for training camp. It's coming next month, guys. We're gonna be out there. It's gonna be hot. There's gonna be a lot of position battles to take a look at, and I'm really excited to get going.
Yeah, I'm excited to hopefully join you guys out there for a couple of days. I'm not going to be able to join during the week this year, but definitely will be able to catch some of the weekend times. Really excited for that because I've been itching to get back out there. It's been quite.
And also gonna get that Baker Mayfield statistic up on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So be able to look out for that.
Yeah, Corey. So be sure to go ahead and follow River on X. He's going to get that quarterback stat out there for you.
Already started. I've already counted 3. So
I could see your mind just racing over there. Just go and look at it. So if you guys weren't listening, River's looking into how many of Baker's turnovers turn into opponents' points because we did a little bit of an analysis piece earlier on that. So head over to River's Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and he'll be able to drop that out there for you guys. We really appreciate you listening. This has been Hear the Cannons, presented by BucsGameday, Sports Illustrated's one and only website strictly dedicated to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As always, River, fire the cannons.
Fire the cannons.